I have spent 41 years studying the blank, not studying what lies behind it. No instrument in the known reaches has ever returned useful data from inside human space, and the scholars who have attempted the question with more ambition than sense have consistently produced the same result: silence, static, and a funded inquiry that ends with a very short final report. What I have studied for 4 decades is the blank itself, its age, its edges, the faint cartographic grammar encoded along its boundary in a script so old the Withdrawal Academy's translation engine required 11 iterations before it produced anything coherent, and even then only fragments. My name is HFY. I hold the senior chair of cartographic history at the Withdrawal Academy. I have published 16 monographs on border designation practices across 4,000 years of recorded expansion. I am not a man given to drama. I mention this because what I am about to record will read as dramatic, and I want the distinction noted clearly in the archive. The drama belongs to the fact, not to the man reporting it. 11 days ago, a fragment arrived. It came through the standard intercept relay at the halveth margin, flagged by the automated script recognition system as a possible match for a known human encoding format. One of only 3 such formats the Academy has managed to partially characterize. The relay system had been sitting on it for 9 years, processing, before it produced a confidence score high enough to escalate. 9 years is not unusual. Human encoding does not cooperate with analysis. I read the translation on a Tuesday morning. I have not slept more than 3 hours on any night since. Here is what I believed for 41 years about the blank. I believed what every scholar in this field believes, what every cartographic institution from the Withdrawal Academy to the Solveth Meridian Surveying Body has recorded as established consensus, that the blank at human space is a warning, a designation erected by the galaxy, or by some sufficiently ancient member of it, to mark a zone of extreme danger, after some original conflict whose details were lost but whose conclusion was not. Do not enter. The blank is old, older than the Academy, older than our predecessor institutions, older, according to the deepest archive analysis, than the oldest known human border engagement in any record we hold. That antiquity has always been its most disturbing feature. It suggested that whatever produced the warning was so thoroughly settled that no subsequent revision had ever been necessary. This is what I believed. The fragment corrected me. The script along the blank's inner boundary, the edge that faces inward, toward human space, not outward toward the rest of the galaxy, is not a warning directed at us. It never was. We had been reading the wrong face of the notation for centuries because we had no legitimate access to the interface, and were reconstructing it from reflected readings and deep margin instrument echoes, which introduced errors we were not positioned to recognize as errors. The inner notation is human in origin. I want to be precise about this, because the implications are large and I am a man who values precision. The script is not alien commentary on human behavior. It is not a third-party designation. It was placed there by humans, facing inward, written for an audience that was also inside. The translation took the relay system 9 years, and required 3 independent passes of the Academy's most current engine to reach coherence. I have reviewed it 11 times. The Academy's Senior Translation Committee reviewed it twice more after I brought it to them. We are in agreement. The notation reads in its entirety, "Not finished yet." That is all. 3 words, in a human encoding format, placed on the interface of the boundary that the galaxy has spent centuries treating as the galaxy's own warning to itself. Not a threat, not a defiance, a notation of status. The kind of entry a working institution places on a project file to indicate that the file is still open, that whatever is inside is still in progress, that the matter has not resolved. They close themselves off. That is the correct reading of the blank, not, the galaxy drew a line to keep humans contained. Humans drew a line around themselves to mark the time they needed. Whatever event preceded the withdrawal, and there was an event. The fragment surrounding data shows energy signatures consistent with a catastrophic internal disruption of a scale our instruments cannot quantify. It was something they needed to address without interruption. The blank was their notation, their own cartographic record. A closed file marker, facing inward, meaning, we are not done here yet. Leave us to it. The galaxy found the line, and built a legend around it. The legend was never wrong about the outcome. Cross the line, do not return. The oldest species avoids the zone. The warning is real. All of that is accurate, but the legend had the direction of causation reversed. We assumed the blank was about us. It was never about us. We were, at most, an afterthought, a nuisance to be kept at arm's length while something far more significant was attended to on the other side. 41 years. I set the fragment down on my desk on a Tuesday morning, and I sat with it for most of the day. Outside the archive window, the academy's lower courtyard was running a student orientation. I could hear it faintly. I thought about all the papers I had written characterizing the blank as an external designation, a galactic self-protective reflex. I thought about how many institutions had built doctrine on that reading, how many fleet orders cited it, how many incursion attempts had been stayed not by a human response but by the accumulated weight of a legend we had authored ourselves, from a misread notation. Then I thought about the other half of what the fragment means. If the blank is a withdrawal marker, then the question it poses is not, what happens if you cross the line? The question it poses is, what happens when they decide they are finished? The notation says not finished yet. It does not say never finished. It does not say the file is closed. It says the work is still in progress, which means the work, at some point, will be complete. I brought this to the commission. The Academy's Chart Revision Commission convenes twice a year in this room, the Deep Archive Chamber, the chart table that has held the primary record of the blank for longer than any living member of the institution has been alive. We met 12 days after I received the fragment. The senior committee was present. The translation was reviewed. The evidence was assessed. The commission voted to revise the chart notation for the first time in the Academy's recorded history. The blank remains. We did not remove it. We have no grounds to remove it, and frankly no desire to. What we revised was the notation in our own cartographic records, the Academy's internal description of what the blank signifies, which had always read as a variant of the standard danger designation language, a marker of enforced exclusion. The new notation required a fresh term. The commission worked for 3 days on the language. What we needed was a word that indicated not danger in the static sense, not a fixed and permanent exclusion, but something more conditional, something that implied a state that had not yet resolved. The word we settled on is old. It predates the Academy. It appears in the earliest cartographic records we hold, used by species that have since gone quiet, to mark a specific kind of boundary, one that was not permanent in nature, one whose condition was understood to be temporary, one that indicated a process still underway rather than a conclusion already reached. In the Academy's cartographic language, and in the older mapping traditions from which that language descends, the word we chose for the new notation is the same word those ancient cartographers used for the moment before a thing wakes. I filed the revised notation. I signed the commission record. I returned my copy of the fragment to the secure archive, where it now sits in a sealed case at Vault Sublevel 3, behind 3 layers of access restriction that the commission voted into place without debate. Then I came back to this room, and I sat down at the chart table, and I looked at the blank for a long time. I have spent 41 years studying it. I know its edges the way another man might know a piece of music, the slight irregularities in the boundary line, where the notation curves toward what our instruments read as a deep margin energy concentration, the places where the blank's outer face carries faint impressions that our best analysis has never resolved into meaning. I understand it differently now. It is not a wall. It is a door. It has always been a door. We simply spent centuries standing in front of it, building stories about the lock, and never once asking whether the lock was on our side. I do not know what they were finishing. I do not know how long the work takes, or whether they measure it in years or in something we have no instrument to quantify. I know that the notation said not finished yet, and that it was placed there long enough ago that our translation engine required 9 years to render it, and that the blank has not moved or changed in any way our instruments can detect. What I know, what the commission knows, and what the sealed file at Sublevel 3 now holds in formal record, is that the notation uses the present tense. Not, was not finished. Not, had not finished. Not finished yet. I set down my pen. I did not go back to the chart.